And when I exhaled, I had green geometric patterns that I could see. It was originally just geometric shapes and they were spinning round. They were like this type of green, I'll never forget it. And then they changed to the shape of leaves after time. And I'd been in the forest that day, so I felt like there was a connection. And even when I slightly opened my eyes, and I know my eyes were open because I could see the lights on the ceiling, I was still seeing this shape.
Do you want to get off your nut without the worry of wasted calories, a damaged liver, and a hangover the next day? Well, you're in luck, because in today's episode, I'm really excited because I'm going to be chatting to Kerry Waters, who, among many other things, which you're going to find out, is an expert in breath work. Now, let's not stereotype. I'm not suggesting that anyone involved in breath work is all about getting off their nut, but that certainly was my experience. So when I had a little dabble in breath work as preparation and research for today's interview, I tried some breath work, and let me tell you, people, I experienced a euphoric feeling that I'm going to be sharing within the interview today. I'm going to be asking Kerry all about it. I'm super keen to chat about this, as you can probably tell. So let's get stuck in.
I am a personal transformation coach, really, because I use various different modalities to help people optimize their health and happiness effectively. I'm a breathwork and cold therapy coach. So, yes, I do put people into ice baths, but only with their permission. I'm a meditation and mindfulness teacher. I'm also a corporate mental health coach, and I am a e-colors personality diversity practitioner.
And this podcast obviously is going out to fitness enthusiasts, but also fitness professionals. So people that are working in the industry, a lot of personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches. So what do you think the sort of core physical and psychological benefits are there of breath work that maybe personal trainers don't know about?
Yeah, there's so many. And just before I answer that question, I think what's really interesting at the moment, John, is more and more athletes are talking about breath work. So Djokovic, he uses conscious breathing in respect to managing recovery, not just from a physical perspective, but from a focus, being present, losing focus, bringing himself back to be on his own game. So he talks about it a lot. Rory McIlroy a couple of weeks ago was talking on a video on YouTube about how he was using calming breathing methods to really mentally focus on his game preparation and when he's at the tee. So it's really, really exciting because I think breathwork is exploding generally in respect to the various different ways that it helps people, but particularly in the sports and therefore fitness arena. So in answer to your question, I think the way to think about breathwork and its benefits, there's really three pillars of benefit. It's a superpower. It benefits you physically, which we'll probably talk a bit more about today due to the nature of the conversation in your space, mentally and emotionally. And it really is the gateway to improving those areas of your life, manipulating in a positive way our autonomic nervous system, which really triggers most of the functions of the body. And again, we can come back to that a little bit more later. It is the gateway to those things. So in respect to fitness, the physiological benefits, I'll just talk about some of them. So effectively, one of the biggies I think that your audience will be interested in is, depending on the breathwork exercise that you're using, you could improve massively the delivery of oxygen from your hemoglobin to the cells of the tissues in the body. And of course, that includes the muscles. So it's an absolute superpower in respect to improving performance from an endurance perspective. And it's a reason why many sports fields are now leveraging breath work. It improves respiratory function. It just effectively improves the function of the entire respiration system. You can manage your HRV through optimizing your breath work. It enables cardiovascular fitness. I mean, it's just endless, right? There's lots and lots of benefits on the physical side of things. It also helps with recovery. So yeah, that's to name a few on the physiological side. On the mental, the breath, as I say, is the kind of the gateway to the nervous system and our autonomic nervous system, as well as triggering and managing and controlling functions of the body, such as hormone production, very, very important in respect to things like endorphins for pain management, as an example, as well as improving the immune function of the body as well. All of those physical. It also stimulates the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system in our autonomic nervous system. From a mental perspective, mental health perspective, mental resilience, however we want to define it, the autonomic nervous system really is where we manage fight or flight. So the sympathetic part of the nervous system is where we are stressed and we are in that kind of fight, flight, or even freeze mode. Okay, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, all that nasty stuff. And then the parasympathetic part of the nervous system is where we see calm. Okay, and if we can take ourselves from a state of stress to calm, obviously we're improving our mental health. And again, we could go down a science rabbit hole about that. We can maybe keep that for another day. So mental resilience, focus, concentration, stress management. That's the mental health, I guess, pillar. And then we've got the emotional aspect as well, which is quite a separate facet of breath work, which is around people use it to release and manage trauma, for example, emotional trauma. It helps you become more in touch with yourself. It connects mind to body. We're often walking around thinking our mind is our mind and our body is our body, and we don't connect the two, right? But they are intrinsically linked, and they need to be, and we need to be thinking of ourselves as a whole. So that's really where the emotional pillar sits. People in that pillar also around managing just difficulties in life, people managing addiction, for example, and as I say, trauma. So 3 core pillars: physical, mental, emotional. It's just amazing. Once you're showed how to use it properly, because you've got kind of our day-to-day breathing that we're doing now, John. You're breathing, you're not giving it any thought at all. It's just happening. You're not having to make it happen. 85% of the population do not breathe correctly. Okay, so there's breath remediation that I work with people on, so that their autonomic breathing, what we're doing now, is the way it should be. Breathe through the nose, not through the mouth, for example. Talk about that more. And then you've got breath work, where you're using different exercises to intentionally bring about specific outcomes in the mind, in the body, emotionally. There's just so much to it. But once you're shown how to use it, as I say, depending what you're looking for and how you want to use it, away you go. It's your breath, and it's your body. And once you learn how to leverage it, you will be amazed at the result.
It's so interesting and sort of captivating, that idea that if you're an athlete at any level, any sport, you're going to benefit from driving more oxygen into the cells. Because even high intensity sports that are very short duration, people will argue, well, they don't need all the oxygen, but they need it for the recovery.
Yes.
In between the high intensity bouts. So it is applicable to everyone. And when you talk about the triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, often when we look at athletes that are overtraining, it's not that they're overtraining, it's that they're under recovering. So the training's fine, that's good, but what they're not doing is getting enough downtime in between. So they might be finishing a training session and then going for a coffee, which obviously is a stimulant, so raising their heart rate and their blood pressure and everything else, when they should probably be doing what you're talking about. I mean, I don't know, but some of the breathwork techniques you talk about, where triggers the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces blood pressure, reduces heart rate, dilates blood vessels, and calms them down. And I can see how that's useful for everyone. People that are
Yes,
stressed, people that aren't stressed,
yes, yes.
athletes. It's great for everybody. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's like the missing piece, really, that PTs and coaches have needed for a while.
Yeah, it really, really is. And as I say, I think it's just such a differentiator both for clients in respect to maximizing their performance. And again, it's like you say, you've got athletes that are all about performance and targets and personal bests, etc., etc. And then you've just got people like me that just want to train for strength and health because we should, and all of the importance about that. And that's another discussion, right? And longevity, etc. Big drive for women such as myself and my age bracket in respect to muscle strength. That's a whole other topic, I guess, but the point is they're two very different ends of the scale. Breathwork is relevant, absolutely relevant for both, whether you're looking to optimize performance, improve recovery, or whether you're just looking to kind of get through it a bit easier and not be as puffed out. And also from the mental pillar perspective, bring about that calm and therefore better improved ability to be more focused and committed to your training regime, I guess.
Yeah, I'm interested actually. I wonder if any of this stuff has been tested on people with ADHD, like whether it has helped with their alertness and focus more than anything. Actually, a lot of them are quite alert. They're too alert. It's the focus, isn't it? That they need
No,
help
no,
with.
you're right. I mean, it's really interesting actually. I do work with some people that have ADHD. There are breathwork techniques that are better for them than others. And obviously, I appreciate, and I'll be really, really honest and open. I'm kind of relatively new on the journey in respect to really, really understanding ADHD better. I understand there's different types. It's not just one type of ADHD, right? So there's different lenses, and therefore people require different things. And it's no different with breath work, right? So when I work with people with ADHD, they tend to be the more calming and not too long. So I know you recently practiced, I think you said to me, some Wim Hof, I believe, and they're
Yeah, it
pretty
was. Yeah,
long sessions, right? Long, heavy, 5 times 30 breaths, amazing stuff. But long, there's a commitment, there's a time commitment, right, to that, to be in that and to
yeah.
do it. I tend to probably not, work with people with ADHD on those longer type breathwork sessions. I try to keep them a bit shorter and a bit more in the calming space. So yes, it's absolutely relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even because I mentioned using the technique for helping to improve focus, but one of the other things that people with ADHD struggle with is switching off.
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day when work is done and they're still like, okay, what next, what next, what next, and they just want to unwind. Then actually some of the stuff you've talked about there, like some sort of breathing drill. I think you mentioned before. Did you mention the box breathing?
Yeah, box breathing. So box breathing is a great breathwork technique, particularly actually used for focus and concentration, as well as calming. But it kind of stands out, you know, predominantly. There's lots of breathwork techniques, but they kind of sit mostly in two camps, really, dependent on the school of breathwork that we're talking about, i.e., whether it's Wim Hof, pranayama, oxygen advantage, whatever it might be. There's many. Okay. But it's normally either calming, focusing very much on the calm, or focusing very much on putting the body in a survival state, and therefore you actually put yourself into intentional stress, because we have good stress. Not all stress is bad. Very important that we exercise is a good stress, right? Putting stress on the body. So box breathing is a funny one because it's kind of like, it's very calming, but it's also really, really good for focus and concentration. So yeah, that's a great one. And just anything really, anything that's got a slowness to the breath, particularly on the exhale, is a really good technique for switching off. Later in the day, rather than I wouldn't suggest you do Wim Hof before you go to bed, for example. If you're starting off on the journey and you're looking to relax, unwind, calm down, box is a good starting place. Yes.
So my Wim Hof experience, well, I've had a few actually since we last spoke.
Okay,
um,
fabulous.
the technique anyway, not Wim Hof, not met him yet, but the probably the most profound one. I got a mate of mine come round who he's all over this sort of stuff. He loves it, and I thought, right, if I'm going to do this with anyone, it's going to be him. So he came over, and I've got a cabin in the garden, and we went out there. I think my wife thinks I'm having an affair with him. We keep disappearing off to the cabin, and or she thinks we're doing something else because we come back a bit high. But it's the Wim
Heavy
Hof.
breathing going on.
Yeah, no, heavy breathing. Yeah. Rumors are out there, but anyway, so the other day we did it, and we did probably what you said. I think it was 5 rounds, 30 breaths, but the breath hold was getting longer in between. And we came in and we just wanted to talk about what we were feeling because it was quite a unique experience. To be feeling what we were feeling without anything in our systems, not
Yes.
not having to take anything to feel like that.
It's real. It's
And
real.
so this friend of mine, he's younger than me, which kind of makes it even weirder, I suppose, when we're disappearing off to the cabin. But he he's never seen. So I started putting on old reruns of cartoons when I was younger on YouTube, and we started watching Mr. Ben. But he was captivated by it, and we sort of paused it and went, "Hang on a minute, this isn't normal. why are we why are we watching reruns of Mr. Ben? Like we would never normally do this. Something is definitely going on." And we were trying to describe it. It was like sort of euphoric with a bit of tranquility, serenity. Like I don't think wouldn't have wanted to do any work. Like I didn't feel like lazy, but I wasn't feeling ambitious, put it that way. Just quite content. And it was a nice feeling. And I'd happily have that feeling every evening, actually.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible. Okay, so the Wim Hof technique and other uh, conscious connected we call type breathing exercises or breathing practices is probably the right word. When you practice Wim Hof or equivalent type breathing techniques, you are putting yourself, as I touched upon a moment ago, with the hyperventilation style breathing intentionally into a state of stress, right? Now, the reason this is advantageous and important, well, one of them, but to kind of like put a bit of a wrap around it, it's an amazing lesson. Breathwork teaches you like this, well, not just this one, but teaches you an amazing lesson, which is this: I can be in a state of stress and I can get myself out of it using my breath. So I can put myself into a state of what I'm going to call good stress, and I'll tell you why it's good in a minute. And then I can change my breathing, the exhale that you mentioned, and the exhale hold, right? And take myself out of it. I can put myself into sympathetic. So I might have just started off, it's just a normal day, I'm calm, I'm okay. And then I'm going to take myself into a state of parasympathetic, calm. Myself by influencing my breath, by breathing in different ways. Now, what happens is, and again, we could get a bit too sciencey, but as you do this, your oxygen levels and your carbon dioxide levels change. And actually, the power in breath work like this is actually more about the CO2 rather than it is the oxygen. We're already at like 96 to 98% saturation of oxygen in our blood if we're healthy people, okay? So when we kind of do really, really deep breathwork techniques, even if we're breathing in a lot and deeply like this, or if you're breathing in through your mouth, as the Wim Hof technique does, you're not actually putting more oxygen in your body because you've only got not that much, right? Because you've only got a little bit of about 4 to 6% room for any more before you hit 100% capacity. Does that make sense? The magic in this sort of breathwork technique is the blowing out of your CO2, okay? Getting rid of the CO2 in this type of breathwork technique is basically what triggers the magic that starts happening inside the body. And basically you end up putting yourself into a survival mode state. So you do the deep breathing in and out, You hold it, you push all the air out, you let all the CO2 go. And basically at that, and you hold your breath on the out breath, as you talked about, right? As you mentioned, which is unusual to people. It's a strange thing because we're not used to doing that as humans. Yeah, it's weird. And then as the oxygen, so you've blown out all the CO2, like lots of CO2, that triggers chemical processes in the body. That's when you know, did you feel the tingling in your fingers? Did you get the tetany, the tingling in the fingers and the
Yeah, so
toes?
my mate was getting that a lot. I didn't notice the tingling so much. Um, yeah, just euphoric. But he was
Yeah,
getting that a lot.
that's called tetany, and that's when you blow off so much CO2 out of your system that your brainstem is looking for this protein that's normally there in the blood. And when the CO2 drops so much, that protein dissipates and that creates a message to your nerves. And that's why you tingle. Okay. So that's one example of a chemical process that starts to happen. When you're on that exhale hold, as we've just mentioned, you've breathed out all the CO2 and slowly your oxygen levels are obviously going to now start to come down, right? Because you're not breathing back in again. Your body goes into survival mode. The nervous system goes, hey, I'm not breathing, I'm not taking in more oxygen, it's slowly dropping. I need to kick in some, I need to kick in my survival. One of those examples of what happens when you're in survival mode in the body on that exhale hold is you produced a surge of hormones, serotonin, endorphins, call them happy hormones. I do, right? That are mood lifters, right? They lift your mood, right? They naturally make you feel happier, euphoric. So that's why you're feeling the euphoria.
Yeah, it was a really nice high because I felt completely with it and in control. And I said to you, so when my mate came over, we were going to have, I think we were toying with the idea of having a couple of beers. And after we did it, I said to him, I don't want any beers, do you? And he was like, nah, which I guess because we were already we were in a nice place and we didn't want to alter that. So it made me think, like, if there's any, for the addicts out there, maybe this is a solution.
So many people with addiction use breath work. I call it as a second line support tool. So what I mean by that is second line support. Obviously, people in addiction programs, recovery, have their core program in that specialism around battling addiction. Breath work and meditation and mindfulness are great kind of support tools to help them on that journey and to sustain recovery. And there's many stories of people that have got through addiction with breath work particularly. So absolutely yes. You're basically, I call it getting high on your own supply, right? We've basically got our own chemist inside us. We've all and in respect to feeling great, like you got, that lovely amazing feeling. So that's the mental health pillar again that I was talking about, and the emotional pillar that's kind of sits in. At the same time, you are kicking off these other amazing processes in your body, improving your white blood cell count, therefore improving your immune system, effectively getting your pH balance. pH goes up higher, great, reduces inflammation over time in the body. So you're doubling your bang for buck, right? You feel great and you're improving processes, you're improving the health of your body through that chemical, like, just montage of stuff kicking off in the body when you change your oxygen and your CO2 levels, because that's basically what you're doing, right? It's incredible. There's a substance in our body called, have you heard of DMT?
Yes,
Right. So dimethotriptyline, I'm not very good at saying that. I'm really pleased with myself because it's a
that was
long
good.
one.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
it
have
was
done
good,
that.
wasn't it? I was impressed. I'll give myself a clap for that. So Um, the science is a little bit out on this. So if you're someone listening to this, one of your listeners is very rationally minded, I totally appreciate why they might want to go and kind of search out the science paper on this. And the science is, that it's still in progress, right? But I say there's three truths: how you feel, anecdotal truth, and rational truth. So, you've got to decide, what works for you, or it's a mixture of the three. But it is understood that we have DMT in our bodies already. So we have people that, DMT is present in plant medicine, ayahuasca, for example, bufo, which is the substance that you on the back of the bufo toad, where people have ingest these plant medicines and have ceremonial, psychedelic, profound experiences. Okay, so it's found there. You've got DMT synthetic that I've never done it myself, but people smoke, right, to have these equivalent experiences. And we've got a little bit of it in our bodies. So, and again, this is where the science is still, not rubber stamped on this, but it's understood we have it present in our spinal fluid, in our cerebral fluid, in our lungs, in our gut, and in our pineal gland. And with certain breathwork techniques, you stimulate that DMT. Now, it's said to be, again, I'm not the scientist on this, but it's said to be like 100,000th amount less than what are in those plants and the synthetic DMT.
Right, okay.
So what I'm saying to people is don't be fearful that you can stimulate your DMT in your body through breath work, because we're talking like teeny amounts, right?
Not like licking the back of a toad, is it?
No, you're not going to be licking the back of the toad. You're not going, it's not going to be like three days in Peru in the jungle, seeing your life pass you by, right? Anything like that. The colours that you might see beyond your eyes, the feelings, the sensations you may feel in your body. And some people have very profound experiences in breathwork, John, like, they have visions, they've been in touch with somebody that's passed. I mean, profound. I've sat in hundreds of breathwork circles where people share their experiences with the deep breathwork that we're talking about, the deep, intense, and they're incredible. So that's why you feel so good, right? You've produced all those great hormones in your body. You feel calm because you've got yourself, the end of that cycle of breathing that you would have done with your friend. You would have been predominantly at the calm stage at the end, right? But that's why you still feel the euphoria because of the happy hormones. And you've probably produced a little bit of DMT, okay? And that's where,
hence the need to watch reruns of Mr. Ben.
Back to the cartoons. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, just to quickly share, I said I'd share an experience with you. So there's a form of breath work called holotropic breathing, which is very, very deep and intense and goes on for a very long time. It can be anything between 1 to 3 hours. There's a couple of different schools out there that teach and guide in holotropic breath work, sometimes called rebirthing. There's a little bit of crossover on the names in the breathwork space, so it can be a bit confusing for people, but it's, if you hear either of those terms, it's the type of breathwork I'm about to share with you that I had this experience in. And I was my good friend, an amazing breathwork instructor called Leon Emmett, I was guiding, absolutely incredible guy. And the first time I worked with him was my first time doing this type of breath work. I wasn't an instructor yet or anything like that. I dabbled with Wim Hof myself at the time. The first time I had really bad tetany in my hands, which we talked about, and I got a little bit nervous and a bit panicky because I'm bringing on hyperventilation intentionally, but you've got lots of support and guidance from Leon and his people. Okay, so he got me through it. And at the end, you breathe in, you hold, you squeeze your pelvic floor, you're there for a long time, and then you let this massive exhale with a kind of a scream out. If you want to, you don't have to. And I literally felt like a bird flying in the sky, right? There was no vision. I felt euphoria like I've never felt before. I felt like I was flying, and I had a massive grin on my face. I'll never forget it. And a tear rolling down my cheek. It was just amazing. The next time I worked with him, at the same point in the breath work at the end, as I say, it's like the crescendo, is it? I can't think of the word.
Crescendo, like in opera or something.
I think so, yeah. And when I exhaled, I had green geometric patterns that I could see. It was originally just geometric shapes, and they were spinning round. They were like this type of green. I'll never forget it. And then they changed to the shape of leaves after time. And I'd been in the forest that day, so I felt like there was a connection. And even when I slightly opened my eyes, and I know my eyes were open because I could see the lights on the ceiling, I was still seeing this shape. That was DMT.
Wow.
Convinced.
That's not too dissimilar to like somebody's shroom experience, is it?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. We have the capability within us to produce our own DMT. And as well as just having a great experience from that, like it opens up, it's a whole other topic again, but it opens up parts of the brain that we just don't normally access. It's incredibly amazing for people managing again mental health. We know psychedelics is now emerging as a as a as a as a domain in respect to the fight against mental health for people that
I mean, it was years ago, wasn't it? Years back in the 50s, and it's come
50s.
back.
Oh god, that's you should do a podcast on that. It'd be amazing. Like it's just yeah, the story around that is incredible. But yeah, like I say, you don't need to take substances. You can achieve that type of experience through breath work 100%.
That was a great chat. Thoroughly enjoyed that today. If you have too, then please, please, please visit us on YouTube, our Storm Fitness Academy YouTube channel, and do two things if you could, or three things actually, even better. If you could subscribe, so you'll always get an alert to let you know when a new video gets released. If you could like the video, amazing. And then the third thing, if you could write a little comment, that'd be great. And I will reply. I promise to reply to the comments. And if you happen to be listening to this on whatever podcast service that you're listening to, then the same there. Do please, like, comment, subscribe there, and share with anyone else you think would also be interested. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episode.